She walked into the courthouse dressed in a navy blue suit, calm, confident, and composed. But before she could even step through the door, 2 officers stopped her. They didn't ask questions. They didn't look twice. They just saw a black woman standing where they thought she didn't belong. "Ma'am, you're not supposed to be here." And before she could answer, they grabbed her arm. In seconds, handcuffs clicked. Cameras flashed. And the whispers began. "Another one causing trouble. Probably resisting again. Typical." They dragged her inside the precinct like a criminal. No one asked her name. No one cared. But what they didn't know was that the woman they just arrested was the judge assigned to oversee their department's federal misconduct investigation. Pause, slight reverb, tone shifts lower. By the time they found out, it was too late. The same officers who humiliated her would soon be standing in her courtroom, begging for mercy. Beat, low piano music fades in, emotional. This isn't just another story about justice. It's about power. It's about race. It's about how quick the world can judge you before it knows your name. And how one woman turned humiliation into history. She came in handcuffed and walked out rewriting the rules of the system that tried to break her. Music rises, cinematic strings swell. This is Raw Tales Stories, where truth walks back up the same steps that tried to break it. If you believe in stories that move hearts, challenge minds, and speak truth, you're in the right place. Now, let's begin. It was just another rainy Thursday evening in downtown Chicago. Umbrellas hurried past the glistening streets, and headlights danced across puddles. But in the middle of all that noise, a moment of silence was about to break a system that thought it couldn't be broken. A black Lexus sedan slowed to a stop at a police checkpoint. Inside was Dr. Amara Lawson, early 30s, elegant, confident, wearing a navy blue suit that spoke of quiet power. Her fingers tapped gently on the steering wheel as she waited for the officer ahead to wave her through. She'd done this drive countless times, but this one, she'd never forget. Officer Blake, tall, muscular, and arrogant, strutted over to her window. He tapped the glass twice with his flashlight, harder than necessary. Amara rolled it down, polite smile intact. Amara. "Good evening, officer." Blake. "License and registration." Amara. "Of course." She reached slowly into her bag. Blake. "Ma'am, keep your hands where I can see 'em." She froze, her calm eyes meeting his jittery ones. Amara. "I'm just reaching for my license, sir." Blake. "Do it slow." The tension was thick. The rain tapped on the roof like a clock ticking toward trouble. She handed him the documents. Blake glanced at them but didn't really read. He looked at her, not with curiosity, but judgment. Blake. "What's your business out here this late, ma'am?" Amara. "I'm on my way to a meeting downtown." Blake. "At 9:30 p.m.? What kind of meeting?" Amara, smiling politely. "Work-related. I'm a consultant." Blake. "Consultant, huh? What kind? Looks more like a lawyer to me." Amara. "Something like that." Blake sneered, leaning closer. "Step out of the vehicle." Amara blinked, surprised but composed. Amara. "Is there a reason for this, officer?" Blake. "Routine check." Amara. "I understand, but—" Blake cutting her off. "Now." Her pulse remained steady. She stepped out, heels clicking against the wet pavement. The wind caught her umbrella, flipping it. Several drivers slowed down to watch. Phones started recording. Officer Dunn, a younger cop, shifted uncomfortably beside Blake. Dunn. Blake, she doesn't look like. Blake. Save it, rookie. Let me handle this. He circled her like she was a suspect. Then he noticed her watch, gold, sleek. Her nails, neat, professional. Her voice, calm, educated. And somehow, that irritated him even more. Blake mocking? You know, you got a lot of confidence for someone being stopped by the police. Amara. Confidence isn't a crime, officer. Blake. We'll see about that. He ordered her to put her hands on the car. She hesitated, one heartbeat too long. And that was enough. He grabbed her wrist and twisted it behind her back. Done. Blake, that's not necessary. Blake, you see that attitude? That's guilt. Rain poured harder now. Amara's hair clung to her face. A few people gasped. One woman shouted, "She didn't do anything!" Blake ignored them. He cuffed her tightly, pushed her toward the cruiser, and slammed the door. Inside the car, Amara stared straight ahead. No tears. No panic. Just stillness. Her mind wasn't racing, it was observing. Calculating. Amara, quietly to herself. You have no idea who you just put in handcuffs. At the station, she was processed like any other detainee. Fingerprint scan. Mugshot. Personal belongings placed in a plastic bag. Blake chuckled while typing into the system. Blake, you must be new to trouble, huh? Don't worry, we'll teach you how it goes. Amara, you might want to double-check before you assume anything. Blake, oh, I'll check. Don't you worry. He tossed her driver's license onto the desk. It slid across, the name glinting under the fluorescent light. Dr. Amara Lawson. Sergeant Harper, an older, more experienced officer, walked in. He looked at the screen, then at Amara, then back at Blake. Harper, where'd you pick her up? Blake, downtown. Suspicious vehicle, tinted windows, evasive. Harper, evasive? Blake, didn't answer my questions properly. Harper, you sure about this arrest? Blake, positive. Harper frowned, eyes narrowing. Something about this doesn't sit right. But Blake waved him off. In the holding room, Amara sat quietly, back straight, eyes forward. Her calm unnerved everyone. One officer whispered, "She doesn't look like a criminal." Another replied, "Then what is she?" She finally looked up, her voice low and sharp. "I'm someone you're going to wish you treated differently." Sound clock ticking, distant thunder. Outside the glass window, Harper couldn't take his eyes off her. He turned to Blake. "Maybe you should run her name one more time." Blake smirked. "Relax, Sarge. I know what I'm doing." But as Harper walked away, he decided to check anyway. He typed the name, Dr. Amara Lawson. Seconds later, his jaw dropped. Her file appeared. Federal Civil Rights Attorney. Special Assignment, Internal Affairs Oversight, Chicago Division. He froze. Everything suddenly made sense. The calm. The confidence. The silence. She wasn't just anyone, she was their investigator. Amara looked up toward the surveillance camera and whispered, "Now let's see what justice looks like behind bars." Inside Chicago's 9th Precinct, silence carried more weight than sound. Every officer moved like a shadow, pretending not to notice the tension that had taken over the room. Dr. Amara Lawson sat behind the glass wall of the holding cell, perfectly still. No tears. No begging. Just quiet, surgical patience, like someone watching pieces fall into place. Officer Dunn stood at his desk, tapping nervously on the keyboard. He couldn't shake what he'd seen, the calm in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It was familiarity. Like she'd been here before. Dunn whispering, "Blake, are we sure we didn't mess up?" Blake smirking, "Mess up? No chance. You saw how she looked at me, defiance, arrogance. That's guilt, rookie." Dunn, "Or it's confidence, sir. You ever think maybe she's not who we think?" Blake, rolling eyes. "You're new, Dunn. You'll learn fast. People like her always play innocent." He leaned back in his chair, sipping stale coffee. Outside the glass, Amara shifted slightly, locking eyes with him. And for a second, he felt like she could see right through him. Meanwhile, Sergeant Harper sat in his office, staring at his computer screen. The report blinking back at him made his stomach twist. Dr. Amara Lawson, Federal Civil Rights Division. Internal Affairs Oversight, DOJ. He muttered under his breath. "Oh, Blake, what have you done?" He grabbed his radio. Harper. Dispatch, I need verification on this Lawson file. Priority 1. Dispatch. Confirmed, Sergeant. She's scheduled for a surprise departmental review this week. What's the emergency? Harper, hesitating. Let's just say, she's already here. Back in the holding cell, Amara folded her hands neatly. She could hear Blake laughing outside, showing off, bragging to another officer about putting a rich woman in her place. She smiled faintly. It wasn't the kind of smile you give when you're amused. It was the kind you wear when you already know how the story ends. She thought back to her father, a police officer himself, beaten and humiliated years ago by corrupt colleagues. That memory was why she joined the Justice Department. Why she was here in the first place. Tonight wasn't a coincidence. It was destiny doing what destiny does best, circling back. Dunn approached her cell hesitantly. He cleared his throat. Dunn. Ma'am, are you comfortable? Amara. As comfortable as someone in handcuffs for no reason can be. Dunn, nervous laugh. Yeah, sorry about that. Officer Blake, Amara, interrupting softly. He acts before he thinks. I've met his type before. She leaned forward, her tone dropping lower. Amara. Tell me, Officer Dunn. Do you believe in doing what's right, even if it costs you your badge? Dunn froze. Her question wasn't casual, it was deliberate. He looked into her eyes and saw something that didn't belong behind bars. Dunn. Who are you, really? Amara. You'll find out soon enough. In Harper's office, the phone rang again. Chief Reynolds was on the line, the one man Harper didn't want to hear from tonight. Chief Reynolds. Harper, I just got a call from the Department of Justice. There's supposed to be a surprise internal audit tonight, conducted by one of their federal investigators. Name. He flips through his notes. Dr. Amara Lawson. Ring any bells? Harper swallowed hard. Harper. Yes, sir. She's in holding. Chief. In what? Harper. Long story, sir, but... Chief. Fix it. Now. Before the press finds out. Do you understand me? Harper. Yes, Chief. Chief. And Harper, pray she doesn't sue the city. The line went dead. Harper stood up so fast his chair toppled. He stormed out of the office, papers flying, anger and panic blending into one storm. He reached the bullpen, saw Blake leaning on the counter, still smirking. Harper roaring, Blake! What the hell did you do? The room went silent. Every head turned. Blake. Just doing my job, Sarge. Stopped a suspicious vehicle. Harper. You mean the DOJ vehicle with government plates? Blake, confused. What? Harper. You just handcuffed a federal investigator. She's with Internal Affairs. The color drained from Blake's face. Blake. Wait, what? That's not possible. She said she didn't say. Harper. She didn't have to. You should have done your damn job right. The officers murmured. Dunn's eyes widened. Internal Affairs? As in investigating us? Harper nodded grimly. Exactly. And right on cue, Amara's voice cut through the tension. From the cell, calm but firm. Sergeant Harper. If you're done yelling, I'd like to speak to my team now. The entire station froze. Blake stammered. Her team? Amara stood, slow and deliberate. Amara. Yes. They've been outside waiting for 10 minutes. As if on cue, headlights flashed through the station's front window. A convoy of black SUVs pulled up, tinted unmarked. The doors swung open. Federal agents stepped out, suits crisp, badges gleaming. Blake stumbled backward, muttering, Oh my God! Harper opened the cell door himself, voice trembling with forced professionalism. Harper. Dr. Lawson, my sincerest apologies. If we had known. Amara, calmly. You would have treated me differently? Harper. Well, Amara, cutting him off. That's exactly the problem, Sergeant. She stepped forward, fixing her jacket, cuffs still dangling from her wrists. The other officers parted like waves. Every camera phone recorded. Every whisper stopped. She looked straight at Blake, his smirk long gone. Amara. Tonight you reminded me why I took this job. Not to punish, but to expose. She turned to Harper. Amara. You might want to call your chief back. The audit starts now. Music swells, calm but powerful. In that moment, silence filled the station again, but this time, it wasn't control. It was fear. Because for the first time, the officers realized. Justice wasn't coming tomorrow. It had already arrived, wearing handcuffs they put on her themselves. You could have heard a pin drop inside the 9th precinct. The same officers who laughed a few hours ago now stood frozen, hands behind their backs, eyes avoiding contact. Dr. Amara Lawson walked slowly down the hallway, the same hallway they dragged her through, except now, her stride was different. Measured. Silent. Commanding. The cuffs were gone, but the memory of them stayed, for everyone. Sergeant Harper followed her, clearing his throat every few steps. Harper. Dr. Lawson, I want to say again, what happened earlier was an unfortunate mistake. Amara, quietly. You're right, Sergeant. It was unfortunate. But it wasn't a mistake. Harper, confused. I don't follow. Amara. Mistakes are accidents. What happened to me was a choice. A chain of choices made by people who thought they'd never be questioned. Her words hung in the air like smoke. And everyone, even Harper, had no choice but to breathe it in. In the conference room, 2 federal agents unpacked laptops and files. The nameplates on the table were already arranged. 9th Precinct Internal Audit, Special Oversight, Dr. Amara Lawson. Blake walked in, his badge trembling slightly in his hand. He looked smaller now, stripped of the authority he once wore like armor. Amara. Officer Blake. Please, have a seat. Blake, swallowing hard. Yes, ma'am. He sat. The metal chair creaked under the weight of guilt. For the next few minutes, Amara didn't say a word. She let silence do what words couldn't, expose unease. Then, calmly, she opened a file and slid it toward him. Amara. Do you recognize this report? Blake squinted. It was his own arrest record from the night before, the one he typed up himself. Blake. Yes, ma'am. Amara. Would you mind reading it aloud? Blake, hesitant. Suspect was uncooperative and evasive. Possible possession of illegal contraband. Amara. Illegal contraband? Blake. That's the phrasing we use for. Amara, interrupting. Did you search the vehicle? Blake. No, ma'am. Amara. So there was no contraband. Blake. No. Amara. And I wasn't uncooperative, was I? Blake, quietly. No, ma'am. Amara. Then your report is false. The entire room stayed silent. Her tone never rose, but her words hit harder than any shout ever could. Dunn, standing near the back, shifted nervously. Amara turned toward him. Amara. Officer Dunn. You were there that night, correct? Dunn. Yes, ma'am. Amara. Tell me, did you see anything that felt wrong? He hesitated. Blake glared at him. Harper folded his arms. Finally Dunn spoke. Dunn. Yes, ma'am. I saw more than I wanted to. Officer Blake acted too fast. You didn't do anything threatening. Amara, nodding. Thank you for your honesty. That's courage. She turned to the others. Amara. You see that? That's what accountability sounds like, not excuses, not silence. The audit moved fast. Every file, every arrest, every complaint opened up like a wound that had been ignored too long. And beneath it all, patterns emerged. Unreported stops. Racially skewed citations. Use of force cases that mysteriously vanished before review. Harper's face hardened as he read the numbers. He'd known the station wasn't perfect, but this? This was rot, deep, systemic rot. Amara. You've been protecting the same behavior that almost ruined my life tonight. And I'm not here for revenge, Sergeant. I'm here to rebuild what you forgot, integrity. She closed the file. The sound echoed like a gavel striking. Harper sighing. You're right, Dr. Lawson. We got lazy. We stopped looking at people as people. Amara. Then start now. Just then, the chief of police, Reynolds, burst into the room, red-faced, sweating. Chief. Dr. Lawson, I just received word from the Department of Justice. They. Amara, interrupting. Already know. I briefed them an hour ago. Chief, startled. You briefed them? Amara. Yes, Chief. I work directly under your oversight committee. And as of tonight, this precinct is under federal observation. Gasps rippled through the room. Blake sank deeper in his chair. Harper lowered his head. For years, this station acted like the world was beneath them. Tonight they realized, justice doesn't knock. It walks in quietly, and sits at the same table you once owned. As the agents packed up the evidence, Amara gathered her things. Dunn approached her timidly. Dunn. Ma'am, if I may ask, why didn't you tell them who you were from the start? She smiled, not bitterly, but knowingly. Amara. Because if I had, they would have treated me differently. And I needed to see how they treat the ones without a voice. She started to walk out. Then paused at the door. Amara, turning slightly. Tell Officer Blake, the hardest lesson isn't about punishment. It's about living with the truth you tried to bury. The door closed behind her. And for the first time in years, the 9th Precinct felt what it meant to be powerless. They hadn't arrested a criminal that night. They had handcuffed accountability itself. Sound fades, light piano rises. Sometimes justice doesn't roar in courtrooms. Sometimes it whispers, in offices, in cells, in places where truth waits patiently to be noticed. Dr. Amara Lawson didn't just expose corruption that night. She reminded them that power isn't in the badge you wear. It's in the way you use it. Days passed since Dr. Amara Lawson's visit to the 9th Precinct. But her presence never really left. The building that once echoed with laughter and arrogance now lived in silence. Officers spoke in hushed tones. Reports were double-checked twice. And for the first time in a long while, the 9th Precinct was afraid, not of criminals, but of its own reflection. Scene, Chief Reynolds' office. Chief Reynolds stood by the window, watching the drizzle coat the city streets. On his desk lay a thick manila folder stamped Federal Review, Confidential. Reynolds, muttering. She's turning the whole place upside down. He sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. The phone buzzed. Voice on the line, nervous. Chief, Dr. Lawson just requested access to our archived complaint logs. The ones from 5 years ago. Reynolds. 5 years? That's before I took command. Tell her she'll need clearance from. Voice. She already has it, sir. Directly from the DOJ. He hung up slowly. A storm wasn't coming, it was already here. Meanwhile, down in Records Division, Dr. Amara Lawson sat surrounded by dusty files and forgotten case reports. Her eyes scanned page after page, each one telling a story of someone ignored, silenced, or dismissed. She wasn't just reading evidence. She was reading lives. Among the files, one caught her eye. Complaint, Officer Harold Blake, unlawful detainment. Date, 2019. Amara, softly. 2019, he's done this before. The file revealed a name, Tariq Coleman. A young black mechanic who'd spent a night in holding for resisting arrest. The case was closed, dismissed quietly. But the internal memo said something else. Video evidence missing. Amara whispered. They didn't lose it. They buried it. Scene, the interrogation room, next morning. The same table. The same cold metal chairs. But this time, Amara wasn't the one being questioned. Officer Dunn sat across from her, honest, nervous, loyal to a fault. Amara. Dunn, tell me, were you on shift the night of Tariq Coleman's arrest? Dunn. Yes, ma'am. I remember him. Blake said the kid was reaching for something. He wasn't. Amara. And the footage? Dunn, hesitating. Blake said the camera malfunctioned. But I saw him remove the drive. Amara, nodding. That's what I needed to know. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Her face was calm, but her voice trembled slightly. Amara. They called me a criminal that night. But how many real crimes were hidden in these walls? By afternoon, the Department of Justice team had arrived with portable servers and forensic drives. Every digital record, every archived video, every deleted timestamp, they wanted it all. And when the first recovered video began to play, even the most hardened officers couldn't look away. Sound cue, faint static crackle, then the sound of police shouting. Hands where I can see them! The footage was grainy, but clear enough. Officer Blake stood over a young man, Tariq Coleman, hands raised, pleading. Then came a shove. A punch. And silence. There it was. Truth, raw, undeniable, painful. The kind that doesn't need commentary, only courage to face it. Blake sat in the back of the room, watching himself on screen. His hands trembled. His jaw tightened. Every frame was a mirror, and it reflected a version of him he'd buried years ago. When the video ended, the room stayed silent for almost a minute. Then Amara spoke. Amara. Officer Blake. You took an oath to protect and serve. Tell me, who were you protecting that night? Blake broken. My ego. I thought if I admitted I was wrong, it'd ruin me. Amara. And instead, it ruined someone else. Tears welled up in his eyes. For the first time, there was no defense, no badge to hide behind. Only guilt. Confession can be ugly. It doesn't come with music or applause. It comes with silence, with shame, with realization. But for Blake, it was also the start of something new, accountability. Later that evening, Amara stood in the chief's office. The setting sun cast long golden streaks across the floor. The storm outside had stopped, but the storm inside was far from over. Reynolds. Dr. Lawson, I've read your findings. This precinct, we failed our people. Amara. You didn't just fail them, Chief. You failed yourselves. Every time you chose comfort over courage. She paused. Her tone softened. Amara. But failure isn't the end. It's the moment you decide what kind of story you want to tell next. Reynolds nodded, looking down. He'd led this station for 10 years, but it took a woman they arrested to remind him what leadership really meant. Blake sat alone on the bench, staring at his badge. He could hear faint laughter echoing from the halls, not from others, but from his own memories. He whispered to himself. Blake, all those people, all those nights I thought I was doing my job. He clenched his fist around the badge. Blake, I was doing damage. Dunn entered quietly. Dunn, they're calling it the Lawson Review. Every precinct's gonna get one. Blake, half smiling. Good. Maybe someone like me will think twice next time. He set his badge on the bench, stood up, and walked out, leaving behind the weight of a past he couldn't carry anymore. Sometimes justice doesn't demand punishment. It demands awakening. And for Blake, that awakening came the moment he saw what power really cost. Meanwhile, outside, Amara stood beneath the station's flickering streetlight. The night was quiet. The air clean. She looked up at the precinct sign, chipped, rusted, but still standing. Amara, to herself. People can change. Even institutions. But first, they have to feel what they've forgotten, humanity. Her phone buzzed. A message from the DOJ read. Phase 2, full citywide review authorized. She smiled faintly. Her fight had only just begun. She came in handcuffed. She left holding the keys to reform. And as the 9th precinct faded behind her, one truth stood unshaken. Sometimes, the ones you treat like criminals are the very people sent to save you. The next morning, the city woke up to a storm. But this one wasn't in the sky, it was on every TV screen, every phone, every newspaper. Breaking news, civil rights investigator detained at local precinct. Turns out she's the judge overseeing their federal review. Headlines screamed. Social media exploded. And within hours, everyone in Brookhaven knew the name, Dr. Amara Lawson. Scene, Amara's apartment, morning light. She stood by the window, coffee untouched. Her phone buzzed nonstop, reporters, activists, even politicians. Everyone wanted a statement. Everyone wanted her reaction. But she stayed silent. Because some truths don't need to be shouted, they just need to be seen. She finally picked up her phone and called one person, her mother. Amara, softly. Mama, it's all over the news. Mama Lawson, warm, calm voice. Good. Maybe now they'll see who you are. Amara. I didn't want fame. I wanted change. Mama. Change doesn't come quiet, baby. It comes when the world's forced to listen. Across town, at the 9th precinct, chaos reigned. Officers whispered in corners. Reporters lined the fences. The chief's phone rang every 5 minutes. And in the middle of it all, Officer Harold Blake sat alone, waiting. He knew what was coming. Scene, the disciplinary hearing, afternoon. A long table. Cameras flashing. Dr. Amara Lawson sat at the far end, facing the officers who had once handcuffed her. The same metal cuffs now rested on the table, symbolic, silent, heavy. Chief Reynolds stood beside her. His tone was solemn. Reynolds, today, we confront our failures. No excuses, no cover-ups. He turned to Blake. Reynolds. Officer Blake, do you understand the charges against you? Blake, low voice. Yes, sir. The room was packed. Fellow officers, citizens, journalists. For the first time, the people who once feared the police were watching them be held accountable. Blake took a deep breath and looked at Amara. His eyes were red, not from anger, from truth finally breaking through denial. Blake. Dr. Lawson, I humiliated you. I profiled you. And I treated you like less than human. You had every right to destroy my career. But instead, you gave me a chance to see what I became. You made me see the badge differently, not as power, but as weight. He paused. The whole room stayed still. Blake, I don't ask for forgiveness. I just hope my mistakes don't silence your mission. Amara's eyes softened. Amara. Officer Blake, justice isn't about revenge. It's about accountability, and the hope that someone who once hurt others learns how to protect them instead. She looked across the room, into the cameras, into the faces of every young officer watching online. Amara, firmly. Every uniform carries a choice. To see color, or to see character. To follow orders, or to follow conscience. The future of policing depends on which one you choose. By the end of the hearing, 4 officers were suspended. 2 resigned. And 1, Officer Blake, volunteered for reassignment to the Community Outreach Division. He said, If I can't erase what I did, maybe I can help others not do the same. The DOJ closed the review with one statement. Change begins where courage meets consequence. Scene, City Hall steps, a week later. Amara stood before a crowd of reporters, flashing lights and microphones. Behind her stood Chief Reynolds and a group of young recruits, the new generation. Reporter. Dr. Lawson, do you believe true reform is possible? Amara. Reform isn't a law you pass. It's a mindset you teach. You can't legislate empathy, you can only live it. She turned to the recruits. Amara. Remember, every time someone looks at your badge, they're not seeing authority. They're seeing trust. Don't break it. The crowd applauded, not wildly, but meaningfully. It was the kind of applause that carried hope, not hype. That night, as the city lights flickered below her office window, Amara finally exhaled. The war wasn't over, but a battle had been won. She opened a letter that had been left on her desk. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was familiar. Dr. Lawson, I've enrolled in community justice classes at night. Maybe redemption isn't a place you reach, maybe it's a road you walk. Thank you for showing me the way. H. Blake. A tear slid down her cheek. Not from sadness, from relief. Scene, final monologue, voice-over. Soft piano music rises, hopeful tone. Narrator. They called her a criminal. They called her angry. They called her too much. But what she really was necessary. In a world that punishes the loud and rewards the blind. Dr. Amara Lawson stood tall, not to be seen, but to make others see. And in the heart of a broken system, she proved something no policy ever could. That justice isn't black or white. It's human. She walked into the station in handcuffs. And walked out rewriting the rules of power itself. This is Raw Tales Stories, where truth walks back up the same steps that tried to break it. If you felt this story, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more.